Atheists, what do you believe in? There is no plan, no grand design. There is what happens, and how we respond to it. Justice only exists to the extent we create it. We can't count on supernatural justice to balance the scales in the afterlife, so we need to do the best we can to make it work out in the here and now. My life and the life of every other human being is something that was extremely unlikely. That makes it rare, precious, and worth preserving. Nothing outside of us assigns meaning to our lives. We have to create meaning for our lives ourselves. Realistically, I think nothing happens. We literally experience nothing after death. Same thing that we experience before birth. We don't exist, so it's nothing. I think the tenet that we should follow while living is to try to be happy and healthy while minimizing the damage we do to each other. What I would like to happen after death is whatever you believe in exists. I think Christians should get to go to heaven if they truly believe in it. Hindus and Buddhists get reincarnated, and everyone else also gets to experience what they believe they will experience. I would still experience nothing. Maybe it's one of those things where at the moment of death their brain makes them experience what feels like an infinitely long moment in time, where they experience their afterlife. I just think it would be neat for everybody. You're born, you live, you die. That's it. After you die you cease to exist, the same as before you were born. I think a lot of religious people struggle to understand how people can content themselves with this. Too bleak. I'd rather live with an uncomfortable truth than a convenient untruth though. This perspective means that you take responsibility for your life and don't just put everything down to God's will and things like fate. You also don't pin all of your hopes on an afterlife, which will never happen. You live while you are alive, because that's all you've got. Just be a kind and empathetic person, not because you're worried about some cosmic justice, but because it's the right thing to do. If there is some being that created us, there's no way they actually care about believing in it or adhering to some rules from over 2000 years ago. Also, a big thing for me is that I find the idea that you need religion or the Bible in order to have morals and ethics pretty dumb. It's pretty clear that most evangelicals have neither. But my main thing is being a good person, simply because, as George Costanza once said, we are living in a society. If you're only a good person, in order to make it to heaven, you probably aren't actually a good and moral person. Atheism generally isn't a belief in the usual sense of the word. It's a lack of belief in a deity. You don't need reasons for not believing in something. You need reasons for believing. Not believing is the default position. There is nothing in this world preventing me from doing unspeakable things. Laws are just words. They have no meaning and only apply if you get caught. The law, in a sense, does not exist. There is no existential threat preventing me from doing anything. I follow the rule of law, fight for equal rights as much as I'm able, and treat people in a manner in which I would like to be treated, because I choose to be, if not a good person, then a compassionate person. Because I choose to be. I believe in me not being a piece of crap. I feel religion is a morality guide for the most part, and some people need that guide. I'm comfortable in doing my best to be a good person for the sake of being a good person. I don't need afterlife bribery. I don't believe in anything, because that requires faith in the absence of evidence. I understand scientific research and culture helps to provide structure to how we see the world, but even this is just a system of theories that are constantly being revised and updated and replaced. From the movie Dogma, Bethany. So you're saying that having beliefs is a bad thing? Rufus, I just think it's better to have an idea. You can change an idea. Changing a belief is trickier. People die for it. People kill for it. The whole of existence is in jeopardy right now because of the Catholic belief system in this plenary indulgence bullsh. Bartleby and Loki, whether they know it or not, are exploiting that belief, and if they are successful, you, me, all of this ends in a heartbeat, all over a belief. Not believing in any supernatural is atheism by definition. So nothing basically. I could mention science, but that is not a belief. Science is just an organized collection of observations and a bunch of theories how to interpret them according to our current knowledge. What do I believe? I believe a lot of things. Atheism has nothing to do with what I believe. Atheism has to do with a very specific thing I don't believe in, and that's a lack of belief in a god or other supernatural religious being. Answering your question though is a bit difficult. What I believe. A belief is just something that one accepts as true. I believe the sky is blue. I believe water is wet. I believe arsenic is a poison. Are you asking rather what I believe in place of a god? And that's the thing. I don't believe in a replacement for a god, since that replacement would just themselves be a god. I don't believe in that. Or are you asking what I believe in as the answer to all the question God answers? To which I'd argue, God doesn't really answer many questions. That is, unless you willfully ignore all of the scientific/historic answers to those same questions. The only questions God answers that we don't have answers to are things like, what is the meaning of life? But that's not really a practical question in my opinion. Does it change anything to have an answer to that outside of removing that sense of existential dread that comes with not knowing? But I'd argue, even though you believe in whatever meaning you've come up with doesn't mean it's true. That existential lack of knowing still exists. You just chose to ignore it by pointing at an imaginary factoid and saying this makes me feel better about it. Like hiding under your banky so as not to look at the empty void under your bed. Here's the problem with questions like what is the meaning of life? The real answer, even if it's comprehensible by our tiny monkey brains, is probably so damn mundane it'd be depressing to hear it. What if it turned out the meaning of life was just piles of everywhere, all of evolution, all of creation, all of the universe was a system designed to make the most efficient shitting machine. And worst, that we weren't even the best model of the making machine. We're the mistake model that just won't die. What do I believe? A lot of things. I just don't believe in that one thing religious/spiritual people do believe in. Just like I also don't believe in the Illuminati. I'm both an atheist and an illuminationist. I'm interpreting this question as just polling people who don't believe in a god as to what they do believe, not restricted to what do you believe about God and religion. So I would say, I believe that my perception provides useful information to help me tailor my experience in life. I believe that very few concepts in life fall into strict dichotomies of this or that, but that most things are a spectrum, shades of gray. I believe that joy and suffering exist, and that maximizing joy and minimizing suffering is a good thing for both my experience in life and other beings' experiences. The fact that theists are confused about what atheists believe in seems like a product of their particular religion's indoctrination. It's not complicated. There is no religion in existence. Can prove they are right, so why should anyone believe in any one of them? Pick the right one and get 72 virgins. Pick the wrong one and you go to hell. Almost everyone chooses their parents' religion. People rarely convert. Is this a lottery where you win if you were born to the right parents? That seems childish and smells like the ideas of prehistoric tribal sheep herders, which in fact, it is. Don't believe in things just because you want them to be true. That's easy, but you're just lying to yourself. That while I won't fault others for wanting or needing religion, there is no sky father who cares about the fate of us or any other species. I was raised Christian and told that God loves children. When you go into social work you encounter innocent souls fundamentally wronged by no fault of their own. Sometimes it's not even a family member's fault. There's no amount of prayer that cures leukemia in a toddler. Thus, either God's definition of "good" is so far flung from our own morality that it is useless to comprehend let alone invoke, or there is no elder being. For everyone's sake, I significantly hope it is the later. An afterlife singing praises onto an eldritch being that teaches through innocent suffering would be my hell. I don't necessarily believe in a singular entity that has control of all domain. If the universe is to be, because there must be something, then that would suggest we are just along for the ride that was allotted a seat for a period of time. I personally think that there truly could be a higher power, only that the way we would define such a being is severely misconstrued. If an entity existed that was outside the box of the universe, I would assume that there would be more than one of this entity and they could be deemed a species that has their own form of society. As we progress into the future, it's very clear that we are gaining vast knowledge that changes how we perceive our surroundings. These entities would be so far beyond our current understanding of what it means to just solely exist. We couldn't truly ever understand their intentions or meanings towards anything. We could be considered ants and they would be the humans in this regard. You just truly couldn't fathom what their existence and experiences mean. Why would a singular entity create what this is? I could most definitely see a group of entities that created the universe, and the reason as to why is something we couldn't ever understand. I believe that our existence is a happy coincidence, a culmination of events, and our planet happened to be the one that hit lucky with an atmosphere and element that sustained life. Humans, in general, have some sort of existential pull to believe in something greater. History proves that, from sun gods, mythological beings, paganism, God, Allah, Ganesh, whatever, etc. I believe the human race generally need to feel that there is a reason for our insignificant existence. I genuinely don't think most of our brains can cope with the fact that we live on borrowed time and that our conscious and body will end. If we fully comprehended it, and it's meaningless, I guess we'd all become depressed nihilists. I mean, what would be the point? Belief in something greater than us gives us hope and optimism in what could often be a dark and worrying existence. It can explain away the bad that we'd otherwise struggle with, especially in times before science could explain away a lot of things. Natural disasters, plagues, weather, etc. Religion or a collective belief also provides a lovely story to make us feel comfortable. Believing in an afterlife is a coping mechanism for the overwhelming grief that someone just doesn't exist anymore. A collective belief also unites us to a community, and we are tribal beings. There's also a lot of positivity in being thankful and worship. That's why I think so many need religion. That and dogmatism, brainwashing from upbringing. That is what I believe.